am the teacher and healer at Earth and Star Spiritual Wellness Center. And today I have a very special doctor guest with us, Dr. Marty Ingram from Hartsville, right?
Yes.
And she drove all the way in just to be with us today to talk with us about something super, super important. Because when we have conversations, a lot of the time we're talking about energy and spiritual teachings, and that's just one road in the path of holistic health. We really want to make the connection between the mind, the body, and the spirit. We want to do things physically, we want to do things mentally, and release the energetics here. And so as a naturopathic doctor, we really look into all of those elementals. And I feel like this, just from my preconceived notions, obviously I have not trained in any way. I actually do come from a nursing background, so that's Western medicine kind of stuff. How did those two things differ? Let's back up.
All
Right. Who are you?
Yes.
What is a naturopathic doctor? What do they do specifically? And I know that doesn't fit in a short sentence mold, but in general, if someone were looking at something outside of Western medicine, covering up symptoms with medication and things like that, if they're looking for something more holistic, what do you guys do? What do you do?
Well, thanks, Mary. One thing that I really like to tell people is that I am kind of a bridge between Western medicine and the type of work that Mary does here at Rustic Raven, which is more on the energetic and spiritual, which I completely believe in as, like a very necessary part to address in our healing process. It's very, very powerful. But we really can't ignore, what is our physical, what are we putting in our body? What is our environment like? Because that's all having a huge effect on our health. And so, back to, we can start with my training because, talking about how am I that bridge person between, traditional Western medicine that, we have here and then what you're doing is when I trained in naturopathic medical school, that was in Portland, Oregon, and it is a 4-year postgraduate program. So what that means is that in order to get accepted to the program, I had to do all the biomedical prerequisites, the organic chemistry, biology, physics, and all of that to get into the program that I did in Oregon. And then, so it's a doctorate level program. So it's, it is a very intensive 4-year program. I actually took 6 years because I had to spread it out a little bit because I was trying to work as well. So I was working as a massage therapist while I finished up my naturopathic medical degree out in Oregon. So I was 6 years, clinical rotation and all of the things. And really the first 2 years really look a lot like regular medical school where we're doing pathology, physiology, really understanding the anatomy, the physiology, how does the body work? And then we dive into all the things that can go wrong with the body in the second year of school. And then the third and fourth year are going to look really different from what you're going to see if you're in a regular medical school because our philosophy is way different. So our philosophy is that the body has the power and the capability to heal itself. And we just need to get out of the way a lot of times. And we need to create the conditions for health. We need to allow health to happen. And so sometimes there are what's called obstacles to cure. And, something like smoking. If someone is smoking, obviously their lungs can't be healthy. So that if we see that, we're like, okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how this might be an obstacle for you to getting better respiratory health. So we will look at things specifically. And and we have training in pharmacology, even though that's not what we typically are using. We're using natural substances like herbs, homeopathy, nutrition to really help people recover their health. But we have this understanding of pharmacology, mechanism of action, so we can help people be safe in how they integrate these things into their life rather than just randomly getting supplements off the internet from someone on TikTok. You really want someone to sit down and put your health history out on the board. What medications are you taking? What supplements are you taking? How do those interact, and how can we best support you? So it's really important, I feel like, for people to understand when they want to move their health forward. It's not just oh, I'm going to take this pill, and even though it's a natural supplement or something that will make me better and I won't have this problem anymore. And we kind of call that green allopathy, where someone is just really like, well, what herb do I take? I'm at a party. What herb do I take for my rheumatoid arthritis? Or what supplement can I take? And I go, hold on, that's not how this works. Like, you don't just, health is not in a pill. We don't just
take. You have to remove the obstacle first.
Yeah, we have to create we have to work holistically. It's about everything in your environment, your mindset, and your everything that comes around. And again, it's not that you have to be perfect in all of those things, but we need to find where is our entry point. And so when I interview someone, we're really looking for, we'll start with the low-hanging fruit of what is something that's going to be easy for my client to do and not overwhelm them, but at the same time make good inroads into how are we going to create a condition of health in the body. So it's a very systematic process to work with someone and evaluate what are their needs, what's causing their stress, and how can we address that, because as you know, stress is like 90% of doctors' visits have stress as an underlying factor. And you probably hear people talk all the time about stress as, all my symptoms flare up when I get stressed. And so, again, these are things that we always have to address when we're working on this holistic level. It's not, it's not something you can answer at a party. It's a very in-depth process to work with someone and connect with the person.
And I get the feeling that, and I have two questions about that, but I do get the feeling that you specifically connect more with clients than maybe other doctors in your area, because you have a very intuitive feel to you, a very good heart connection. I feel like you actually you have less of a power trip, I want to be a doctor, and more of a I care and I want to bring nature and health and healing to the world. I just get that from you.
Thank you. Yeah, and so, it's an interesting thing because, and we can go into a lot, but, osteopathic doctors used to do a lot of body work and a lot of intuitive work on the massage table, working with alignments and different, energetic things. And nowadays, a DO or an osteopathic doctor they're pretty much the same as an MD. They have all, most of them practice completely the same. They're no longer.
Is this like bone?
They do like a craniosacral therapy,
okay. and like a chiropractor maybe.
It's different, but it was a very like hands-on type of healing modality.
Okay.
Before it became like almost synonymous with, they get the degree is different. It's a DO instead of an MD, but most of them are just thinking along the same terms of what you would get with any doctor. Mm-hmm. There are a very few that I know that I've worked with who do still put hands on the body and work with healing energetically, getting the body aligned and all the things that osteopathic doctors are great for. But the profession has completely changed in recent years. So naturopathic medicine is also subject to that because in states like on the West Coast and in the Northeast, we are licensed as primary care physicians.
Okay.
So people could choose us, they can just choose an ND instead of an MD if they want that to be their primary point of contact. So in certain states, and this is again different state by state, we are going to be prescribing basic things like, if the rescue inhaler is needed or thyroid hormone is needed, we would have prescriptive rights for, more natural and primary care based stuff, in South Carolina, I don't do anything with pharmaceuticals. That's not in our scope here and not really my interest point. But yeah, just saying that when you are in a situation where you're acting in that world, your practice is going to shift and change to be very different. So like up in Charlotte, I have colleagues up there who practice more in this like functional medicine type of model, where they're like, people come into the practice, they have to do $5,000 worth of lab work to even become a patient, and then they get like a huge regimen of very expensive supplements. And so that is a model that's becoming more common in our profession, which I think is sad, because they lose that individuality of connecting with the patient. And it feels almost to me like it becomes more of a numbers game than really healing.
That connection piece. Yeah.
So my practice looks very different than some of my colleagues in Charlotte who have my same degree. So yeah, it is. It's an interesting thing, and that's just the way the world pushes us to be more productive, more efficient. But we lose that time and that chance to connect. And so, people get on average 3 to 5 minutes with their doctor.
Not long.
How can they understand? So, classic example, my father-in-law says, he tells the doctor, I'm a vegetarian. And they go, awesome. And they move on. Well, what can a vegetarian look like? We call junk food vegetarian all the time. They eat French fries and potato chips, and they just don't eat meat, but they're not eating like a healthy diet, So it's if you stay at that surface, you don't really get to understand what's wrong with the person. Mm-hmm. And so, 80% of a medical diagnosis is really just in the history, a good history taking. And again, I don't diagnose people. That is not what I'm doing here. I always have people, they stick with their medical doctor for medical stuff. But what we find in what's happening in this world of medicine today is it's getting more and more reductionistic, like the microscope focus on one little biochemical pathway, and then they lose sight of the whole person.
I love that you're really trying to stick with the big connection, looking at the person as a whole, digging into each thing. Because I actually know quite a few vegetarians or even vegans who struggle with their weight or struggle with feeling happy or things like that. And when I read their energy, all I can pick up is, well, you need meat. And I don't think that that's their answer, because it's a choice to not eat meat, but that's what the body is craving. And I think it's because their body isn't getting the proper nutrients according to their diet. So this is something that you would address in your profession.
Yeah, so I do have to talk to people. I mean, I do talk to people about their diet all the time. That's one of our foundation pieces. But it's not always what people think. Because many people come in with preconceived notions about what is a healthy diet, because often they're in one corner of the internet and they're getting influenced by influencers, in one soapbox over here. So some people might come in and they are like full-on vegan, but yet, when I assess them, I find that they have low energy, their hormones are off, if they've been doing this long term. Because like you said, it's not. If we were to go out in nature, what would you eat if there was no grocery store and you lived in a temperate climate without, coconuts and pineapples falling off the tree, what would you eat? You would probably get a deer if you were hungry, that would be what you would eat if you were trying to live out in the woods in this climate. So that, to me, whenever I have a question like, what's the right diet? I just go back to, we're humans on this planet, and it differs depending on where you live in the planet, but again, if someone ever tells you that you can't eat all of these things, then that's just like some theory that they have. It's not necessarily based in any kind of reality or history or anything, so it's like dogma, and we want to avoid dogma, and we want to avoid restrictive diets, and we want people to enjoy their food. I help people just kind of figure out how to take what they love and make it healthier and get good quality.
The balance of it.
Yeah, and then I always talk about quality, the energetics of the food too, because when you get food raised from a local farmer that you can shake hands with, and how they're treating their animals, and what goes into the process, the energetics of that meat is completely different than whatever you pick up at Walmart that came from a big feedlot, and so it changes. It's not just meat is bad, but how did you cook the meat? How was the meat raised? And that's the energetic piece that I feel is the more important thing. Mm-hmm. It's like, yes, you don't have to eat some weird rabbit food diet or all these things, but you do have to be a little intentional with, sourcing things but the food that you make can be very satisfying, nourishing. That's the point, right? We don't want to be hungry and deficient and depleted. That's not healthy, right?
I love that. I love that you went to the energetics of the food, because my mind automatically went to, are we eating fear? Are we eating abuse? Are we eating those things? And is that what's going into our body? And then our body's like, look, no, rather than taking on those nutrients. But that's just the energetics of it. Now, the people who choose to be vegan or vegetarian, you also, I would imagine, be able to balance their hormones and their diet with the things that they're missing from the meats.
Yeah. So
it's a very emotional piece.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I support people in, again, when I talk to a client, I am not saying, oh, here's my diet handout, you must do this, because everybody is completely different, and their body, our physiologies are different, and our emotional needs and connections with food are different. So it is always about who's in front of me, what do they need, and how can we add things rather than, take things away, because diet is a weird thing, and diet and also things like coffee, these are rituals, and these are powerful for people, and you can't take someone's rituals away, or they're going to be very ungrounded and unhappy with you. And so, there's many, health promoters, and if they're online and they're just talking to people en masse, they're going to say really extreme things, and they're going to have their dogma, like I said, but that person on the other end who's listening, they're not getting addressed individually at all, and so that's a big shortcoming. And so I see more and more people developing a condition we call orthorexia, which basically is sort of an eating disorder, which means that you are so obsessed with trying to do everything right with your diet that you now have basically an eating disorder. And so we want to avoid eating disorders.
I'm actually excited that you brought that up. I'm so excited because there's two different extremes where we have some people who their diet is whatever, and we need to balance that or try to cut back on certain things to bring that balance. And then I see other people who really are so tracking all of their calories, every single thing that they eat, every single thing that they take in, and trying to make everything so perfect and so right that it's almost like becoming obsessive. I have seen people like that, yes.
And we call that nutritionism, right?
I didn't even know it was a thing.
So what happens is, so say there's ketogenic diet. So they're like, okay, I can only have this many carbs and this much, so they're trying to get a certain number on their protein, their carbs, and their fat. They're trying to fit it, whatever they're eating, into this prescription of macronutrient. So they're going to go around looking at labels. So they're going to pick up the keto bread, the low carb bread. And they're only going to scan for, it's only got this many grams of net carbs, so I can eat this. Well, if they were to actually look at the ingredient part of that label, and especially, and I've done this to my classes where I give them the ingredient part of that label, and I say, can you guess what this is? And people they don't know, because the ingredients are not bread. It's all these weird fillers and starches and gums and things that they put together to make a bread-like substance, so that it has the right macronutrients for the diet the person is trying to follow. Now that is pretty disordered, in my opinion. And the food industry is more than happy to comply to create these products, because when a diet becomes popular, then new products are created and sold and money is made. So it's very far from a natural food. And so I always try to get people, I want people to eat real food. Okay, that includes meat if they want meat. That is not, to me, if you're getting a good quality local meat, that is not a problem for your health. Even beef. We have a local farmer in Hartsville who raises it out on the pasture and grass, and they're living a wonderful, free life and getting just foraging natural things, that meat is perfectly healthy in my opinion, to include in your diet. So again, diet is a really weird thing to talk about though, because the minute you try to like get it described, there's going to be an exception or a
and that goes back to the connection you're talking about, because everyone is an individual. Their diets are individualistic according to what their body needs, according to their lifestyle and how active or whatever, how much they need to burn. Stepping back a little bit, because I had a couple of questions before, and this one was just a curiosity question. We were talking about the thing that we had to remove, and to me it kind of felt similar to energetics, because when we're looking for something energetically, we have to remove the blockage. And you said something similar to the physical health or to the naturopathic way. At what point does Western medicine become that blockage?
Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we think about, the kind of the therapeutic order, but like, the first step is really creating conditions for health. So we can't,
which was my second question. What are the conditions for health?
So I think I often tell people that it's like a stool, right? So we've got legs of the stool for it to be stable. So been talking about diet, obviously that's one leg of the stool. Okay. Getting plenty of, physical movement and not just sitting. That would be, your kind of exercise and movement would be another leg. Sleep is one that I work a lot with people on, because that's when your body has a chance to repair and heal. So that's important. And then stress management. Those are usually the four that come up, most often when we're trying to work on a foundational level of health. Optimizing all of those areas. And again, this is not just you sit down and you have to do it all at once. But what we know is when you start working on one, you have more motivation to work on the others, and it just starts to follow like a train, like it builds. And health, we always talk about health as like peeling layers of an onion. So we kind of get one layer off and then something else emerges that we can then work on. And so again, you're not gonna, if you have, most of my clients live with chronic illness. So it's not, however many years you've had this condition that you're struggling with, is, you're going to be, probably that many months on unwinding it. So it's like a journey more, like, it's not just like, oh, here's a few supplements, you'll be fine, but you have to think about how long that illness has been settling in and affecting the body. So it takes some time to unwind. But, so going back to the therapeutic order, so one of our main philosophy points is use the least force necessary. We have so many tools. Like, I work with so many, I have so many options of ways to give people the herbs or the homeopathic remedies, or the, using food as medicine, or, some people may just need the convenience of a capsule, an encapsulated product. So there's so many ways to bring the herbs into the life, to bring this all in. But many of the people that I work with have come to me because they're so sensitive energetically as individuals that any kind of pharmaceutical just throws them off. I mean, they can't, like, the side effects are so severe that they just have to discontinue, and then pretty soon they're out of options because they've reacted strongly to every medication. So back to why I think that it's a problem is because with allopathic medicine or Western medicine, everything is sort of a hammer. They're strong medicines. Everything is like, we're stopping a biochemical pathway. And so now there's metabolic things at the other end that are creating new problems, because it's like you're damming a river, and now there's floods coming off on all the different sides. And so when we use natural medicine, it takes longer. We're doing things more gradually and progressively, but the river stays in its banks, and now we're flowing the river, and we're not just stopping or damming up the river and creating problems that are new problems. So that's the idea, is that we want to keep things flowing and moving, and when we have flow, there's less pain, there's less stagnation, and the body that's the direction the body wants to go. So use the least force necessary, and our tools are gentle. And again, we have different layers of natural, like we can use smaller doses, we can do different ways, so that the person who we're working with, their body is like, yes, I like this. And your body, when your body says yes, when you take, say, a homeopathic remedy and your body says yes, what you notice is you just start to feel just better energy, better well-being, even though maybe your symptom hasn't yet changed, but your body is already saying, yes, I like this. This feels good to me.
Good. So just briefly, can we explain, it sounds like allopathy, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Is typical Western medicine.
Yeah, so allopathy just means that you are taking the symptom and you are trying to do the opposite of it to stop the symptom. So there's inflammation, so you're going to give a steroid to stop the inflammation. So that's just like the mindset of whatever symptom shows up, just squash it down, cover it up, make it go away.
Blood pressure medicine, cholesterol medicine,
anti-everything.
Okay, anti-everything.
Anti-everything. Just whatever's high, push it low, and that's just, that would be the kind of treating things like with the opposite. Now, so we're talking about homeopathy a little bit, which is a whole system of medicine in and of itself, but the philosophy is completely different, and that is, the philosophy is like cures like, rather than the opposite.
Okay.
And so Samuel Hahnemann, the founder of homeopathy, and this was in the 18th century, he discovered that, so one of the herbalists in the day was saying, well, Peruvian bark seems to really help with malaria, probably because it's so bitter, it's bitter principle. And Hahnemann's like, he was a genius. I mean, he was amazing. And just like one of those Renaissance guys, always thinking, and he was a medical doctor as well, and a linguist. But he said, well, there's lots of herbs that are bitter. Like that's not the reason that helps with malaria. And so he started taking like almost toxic doses of the bark, and was noticing that when he took that much of the Peruvian bark, he would get symptoms that looked just like malaria, like that intermittent fever and chills and all the things that malaria offers. And he was like, I wonder if when you give that in a non-toxic tiny dose, if that's just stimulating the body to have its healing response, that natural, the healing power of nature that lives inside of us, it just stimulates that little spark to then get your body set into the right path, almost like energetically. It's like the response. And so he did that, and he found this pattern repeating over and over, is that when we take a substance that normally, if it's, we look at the symptoms in a toxic dose, and then that can guide us to the patients. When the patient describes their symptoms to us, then we can see, oh, well, that means that this particular substance, if I give it in a homeopathic, which is a tiny, tiny, tiny dose, it's going to stimulate that person's vital force to then correct the issue. So I can just give you a little story about a recent patient that I had, and he was having these horrendous headaches. Like he told me he lost like multiple jobs and back pain, and he'd been to multiple specialists and just couldn't function. And he was a young guy, like in his 20s, and just couldn't function. His body was in such horrible pain. So I had found a homeopathic remedy that matched his symptoms really, really well. So when you take a case, you have to be very detailed to get the right match, or otherwise just nothing really happens, right? So for him, I got a knockdown match, and I didn't hear from him for a long time, And so I was like, I need to find out what happened to him, and he said, I'm sorry, I just, I've been busy, but I just wanted to tell you that I am fine. Like, he's like, I started just taking the remedy every day, like you told me. And, over time, just my headaches got less and less severe, and the pain in my back and my body, just a little bit every day, just less severe. And then finally it just kind of went away. And so then he just, went about his life, started coming back. So then he called me again. It's like, we need to re-meet again, but, because he had stopped everything. But yeah, but a lot of times, and again, but it wasn't anywhere near where it was. He just got a little bit worried, like, I don't want to go back there. But yeah, but it's, so I find that homeopathy can be deeply amazing for people when you find the right match. They are experiencing just that transformation on this deep level, and you're barely giving them anything. Like, it's
microdosing.
It's
for
microdosing.
I love it.
Yeah.
How is that like vaccination?
It's not like that at all. Mm-mm.
For some reason, like in my brain, I made that connection for a second where we're taking like a virus and putting it in somebody's body so that they create this thing.
Well, yeah, because the vaccination is about creating antibodies that have memory for that particular disease. But so this is not like that at all. It's more, we're stimulating that vital force to your body to do whatever process.
So when you stimulate that vital force, does it create a memory in the body so that even if they taper off of the microdose, then it's still okay? Yeah,
normally, yeah. And again, like I said, he just started to have a few little symptoms. He was still fine. Like, he just was like, okay, I think I need to go back in. But yeah, that was kind of, an amazing thing. Because usually when I work with people, we meet, about once a month, and with these chronic conditions. Now he was, again, because he was so young, his body was very, like we say, there's levels of vitality. So he was a pretty vital guy, in his 20s. So he responded so well and quickly partly because he was a young guy and had that vitality in there, But when someone's older in life and their chronic condition has been with them for decades and decades, their vitality is usually lower. So it's going to take longer for that healing process to happen. So I just wanted to say it can be really amazing, but usually when we're working on chronic stuff, it takes time to work.
To unwind that.
Unwind. It's really an unwinding process. Yeah.
So what's the difference then? So we know the allopathy, the homeopathy, did I say that right? Homeopathy. What's the difference between the homeopathy than the naturopathy?
Okay, so naturopathy was, it's like kind of another system of medicine, but yet we do use homeopathy as one of our modalities, so one of the things we offer to people. Now again, every naturopathic doctor is different, so some don't tend to use homeopathy because it's very time consuming to really understand the person and their pathology and how you can, so we have a whole repertoire and a whole program that we will put in the symptoms to, try to direct us to the correct remedy. But it takes a lot of time to work when you're really doing classical homeopathy where you're trying to match that person, and that's when you get the best results. When you use homeopathy from the grocery store or the health food store and it's just like, a lot of things thrown in together in one bottle, the kitchen sink, you don't tend to get those kind of amazing results. It does help some, but it's just like when you're trying to do it for the mass market, it's going to be a different thing than when someone's sitting down with you and saying, now tell me, because and this is the classic example too, depression, there's, in allopathy, there's just we just want to work biochemically and extend the serotonin life with an SSRI, Prozac or Wellbutrin, just keep that serotonin around longer in the synapses so, the brain can be happier. When I work with someone with depression, it's there's so many things that lead into that feeling of, and it's not just a biochemical thing, and that was one theory, but and again, I'm not saying that if you have severe depression not to take your medicine, because it does help people who are in a severe state, but I think you also need to address all the other factors of the lifestyle, the sunshine, and what you're, the things you're thinking and the things that you're exposed to, the things you're consuming, the media that you're consuming, all of these things are affecting how you feel. Again, because it's like, it's all energy, and depression is really just can be like a flat line of energy, and there's no, that joy is gone, that reason for living, or just the motivation, right, to to experience that joy again. But so yeah, when we are working with someone who has depression, it's going to be individual depending on how they present. Because when in homeopathy, we're looking always for a pattern, and there's always like a cycle of symptoms and what takes you down into the kind of despair place and what brings you back up again. So we're always going to try to understand how their cycle looks, and then that will indicate which remedy will be most likely to help. And then, and again, there's so many other pieces besides homeopathy that I work on with people, so I'm always doing a multi-pronged approach. And I don't do homeopathy with everyone either, because some people just come in with, weight gain and menopausal symptoms, and they don't necessarily need the homeopathy. So again, it just depends on who's coming in and what their symptoms are like as to what modality I might choose for them, because that's also very individualized. So again, the way that I do practice naturopathic medicine, it's very personalized, very individualized, and again, it does require a lot of time, which is, but people love having that time to sit down and unpack their story and be heard and be understood, and then get something that they can, and then I always give them homework. They're not just gonna, it's not just like take this, it's like here's what we're gonna think about, here's what you need to work on. And so that's the whole thing, is they have to be engaged, and they love that in general, to like not just be helplessly, just take charge of their health. Like that's what I want for people, to empower them so they can like feel that they have some degree of agency in this whole, how they're feeling.
I love that. And it's like they're getting to know themselves through this. I really see a lot of people, and women especially, because of cycles and things like that, who don't understand how their body works, how it affects their moods, how their thoughts affect things. And when you don't understand your body, there's a lot of, oh, I'm sick, I'm not well, depression, sadness, or self-rejection that begins to happen. So I love that, stepping into your own power, getting to know yourself through you and what you do in your search. How did you get into this? Because you just feel like a willow tree over here, like just someone who was elfin, born into nature, and now you know everything with the magic of your wand. How did you get into it?
No magic. It was a lot of
hard work. Not to take away your hard work. You worked very hard.
So yeah, I mean, again, my training was very left brain. So, but yeah, in my, now that I've been working with naturopathic medicine for 20 years, I think I'm getting more and more into like the more right-brained approach to it, because you can't really be intuitive unless you have knowledge to back you up, in my opinion. Like, because some people go to a practitioner, I'm going to back that up. I'm not talking about, energy work for clearing blockages, but sometimes there's people, I don't know, they don't have any knowledge, but they're just telling people they need certain supplement because, of their muscle went weak. And sometimes, and again, I think that the body can be speaking through that, but practitioners can also direct their own intentions through that. So if they are not completely clear, they're going to be influencing those results based on what the practitioner's notions like. So it's a very murky water sometimes. When you see certain things going on in the alternative health space. So I've had people that, again, they're setting up a way to sell their product. It feels to me, rather than really understanding and how that, understanding or even the knowledge. So again, because I went to 4 years of medical school, there's just a lot of knowledge about stuff that's behind, even though what I'm doing is, like I said, I'm not doing medical work with people, but I have all that knowledge in there. So people often come in and they say, well, nobody explained these labs to me. And we'll sit down and I'll just tell them, like, here's what your labs mean. This is what we can, this is what this indicates in your body. I mean, and I taught anatomy and physiology at the college level to nursing students. So that was one of my jobs that I did as well. So, getting to really revisit all of the physiology stuff was cool for me, because I did that after maybe 12 years after I graduated from school. So getting to review it all again. And that was, a good thing for me to have it all fresh again of how the body works, because it's so cool and fascinating. And doctor as teacher is another one of our big philosophy pieces. One of our principles of naturopathic medicine is we are here to teach people about their body, about their health, and how to achieve health. Because when someone is coming from a place of power, you must do this, the person is not empowered, like you said. The person who has to actually do the work, or they're afraid to ask questions, and that's not okay either. I mean, people often say they sit there like a deer in headlights and get talked at, and then the doctor leaves and they're like, I don't know what just happened, but I should have asked this, but then they never get a chance to even ask. So people just, need support and need direction, and they need a plan, and they need to take it slow, or, they need to, I always work with people from where they are, where are you starting? So it's going to look different. So again, you don't have to be afraid that when you go to a naturopathic doctor, they're going to take away all your favorite foods and make you do this crazy, regime. That's really not what it's about, because health is balance. Health is moderation, and we should be able to not be thrown into a fit of symptoms because we ate birthday cake, right?
Right.
That should not destabilize us. So we are not healthy if we can only control our symptoms by being super rigid. We are not yet healthy. So, again, we may need to control they may need to control symptoms like that for a bit, but that's not the ultimate goal, is to live in that place where you can't socialize and can't just be relaxed in the world. You're not there yet.
Yes. And I like what you touched on with the intuitive here and the knowledge base underneath, because as intuitives, and a lot of our viewers are budding psychics and, healers and things like that. And so intuitively we can find in the body where the energy is stagnant.
Oh, yeah.
We can see the organ that it's affecting, but without knowledge of your organs, you still don't know necessarily what you're seeing unless you just hear the word or something like that. So I like that, even though I can look at someone and pick up a little bit about, your pancreas is lighting up for me right now. I know what the pancreas does. I know energetically what it's creating. So there's something here, but now you need to go to a doctor. Here's the energetics of this particular thing, the affirmation that can help change the mindset of that. But let's also see what's going on physically. But you are like both of those things in one, because you have that whole doctor thing, so you can test beyond just, well, is it this or this? You can test with you have all of the knowledge underneath of all of the organs and how everything works and how everything connects together with the mind and the spirit and all of that. You have all of the connections there in that huge knowledge base. So I think that it really gives people a jump start into what they're getting into.
Now, I always tell people knowledge is power. Now, because, I'm here in South Carolina, I'm not in the medical setting, like I said, I'm always going to refer people. I said, it looks like, you need to go get those lab tests or that, doctor's visit to see what's actually going on in your body. And so knowledge is power. So we have different ways of knowing. And so I'm going to refer them to that specialist or to that doctor to see if we can see what we can learn. But I always also tell people that, it's ultimately your choice what you decide to put into your body. And there may be recommendations, again, that, that may make you feel sick or that's creating problems. That's, again, I think that we need to work as a team. So, in the perfect world, there would be the medical doctors and then the naturopaths who are going to take that lens back and see the whole person and find, how to integrate everything for the best interest of the healing of the patient. And so, like at, certain places, not here in South Carolina, but that's happening more and more where they're understanding the value of having, a team.
Yeah.
And so again, I'm not diagnosing, I would not be diagnosing diabetes in someone. I would say, okay, you need to go see if that's what's going on with your pancreas. That's not my job either. But then they can come back to me and then we can talk about, type 2 diabetes is completely reversible if we work on this. If you actually decide, I don't want to go down that path because that's a bad path to go down, all of the heart disease and diabetes that are so, rampant in our culture and our, in America, much of that can just be prevented if people are really being intentional with their diet and lifestyle, in just understanding a little bit more how those conditions are coming about from choices and things. But we're not here to take away the joy.
But with exactly what you just said, the word that just came out of your mouth, and it was even, my point was, you knew what the pancreas does. And a lot of other people may not. So even if that lights up for them, they may not automatically connect it to diabetes. So let's figure out this in the health way. And then you said the word joy, which is diabetes, a lack of joy in the energetics. Mm-hmm. So you have all of this knowledge to be able to fit all of those pieces together, to bridge it, to take that lens back and see the whole person, like you said. So I think it's so important. All of these things are so important, creating that foundation of health. So another thing that I feel like a good bit of my clientele struggle with is digestive stuff, or looking into, I guess, essentially gut health. How would you, you're smiling about it. So the health of our gut is at the center of the health of our whole body. The center.
That is the center, yes, gut health. And as naturopathic doctors, we really focus on gut health. And again, I'd say, most common things people come to me for, digestive issues is up there for sure. Lots of digestive issues, and lots of things that, people have been to the gastroenterologist and they're not getting help. So lots of things with the gut that are just, some people just deal with it, live with it, but they're never feeling good, and they don't have that freedom to just not think about their digestive system, which isn't great in my opinion. You should not be aware of your digestion. That should just be what happens, and it's in the background. But yeah, so many people have that front and center because there's discomfort, cramping, urgency, all these things that are happening that aren't normal. So we work on that really a lot. And so, there's been tons of research in the last decade on the microbiome, which is the collection of tiny microorganisms that live, symbiotically with us in our gut and actually make us healthy when they are in balance. Mm-hmm. And so, and it's not just gut health, like gut symptoms, but it's also our immune health, our metabolic health, like, diabetes and those types of things, and our mental health. So when we strengthen our gut health and get that, so oftentimes that is the first place I start. Someone might have all this arthritis and all these things, but when we get the gut health going, a lot of that pain can start to diminish too, even just getting the gut barriers improved and getting things working properly through the digestive system. We get a lot of mileage there. So that is a place we start often. Yeah.
And I did know, like I said, a lot of the clients have digestive issues or food allergy symptoms, things like that. But I did know that there was a connection between the gut and the mind. But you took that a little further past just the mind and emotions. And it's crazy that what you eat and your gut health can affect your emotions. But you took it a little further by saying pain. And I know a lot of people who suffer with pain or extreme amounts of pain. So your gut health affects your pain levels, is what I'm hearing.
It affects inflammation in the body. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just in general, when someone is experiencing a lot of pain, and sometimes those, there is a hypersensitivity to pain, and it kind of sets in as a syndrome, so again, those people that are really hypersensitive to movements in the digestive, and pain, they need a gentle approach most of the time, and so that's why they don't get helped by pharmaceuticals a lot of the time, because it's too strong for them. They're hypersensitive people, and their body just can't handle it. So again, they find their way to me because they're just so extremely sensitive, and so when we can use these, microdose types of things that are so gentle and non-toxic.
The homeopathy.
Yeah.
I remembered that.
Yeah. When we are able to use those things, it's amazing for them, because now their body doesn't go into a tailspin. We can we can really go at the pace their body wants to go. We can take it so gentle and just support and heal, and then build strength and integrity in the gut barrier, because that, when that barrier is compromised, then inflammation happens in the rest of the body, in the joints, and it spreads from there, from what you're taking in, and then normally your body regulates it. But when we have damage to the gut wall, now things that aren't supposed to be coming in, because our digestive system is really just a tube, through the body, but it's not in the body. If you see what I'm saying, it's just a tube that goes through. But the gut wall is really the entry to the interior of the body, the sacred space, so to speak. And so if we can create a barrier such that your body can choose what comes in and what doesn't, then the inflammation can reduce.
I'm feeling that has a lot to do with flow.
That too, yeah. We definitely want flow in the digestive system too. But yeah.
Okay, because when you're describing this tube and all that kind of stuff, and before we even started this video, you mentioned the word stagnation.
Yeah.
And I really liked that word because that flows into everything, the body, the energetics, the mind. Stagnation is something that we don't want blocking things, but when you're talking about these tubes, I'm just seeing everything going kind of like that. It's just a good flow feeling. So you actually, now before we get into that though, most of what you do, you can do long distance over the phone.
Yes, because like I said, because I'm not acting medically, and especially during the pandemic, I had my whole practice set up as virtual. So I have I have all of that with my the setup that I have going can be definitely done virtual. I mean, if people are anywhere near, Florence, Hartsville, I love to have them come at least for the first visit, because we do a 90-minute sit down. And again, we can connect just fine over the video call. That is, really not a problem. But again, there is something nice about being in person. But I had great results when I was working with people through the pandemic virtually as well. So it doesn't really matter, because we're, it's like I said, I'm gathering a lot of information, but I'm feeling you too, even though we're distance. I feel that
connecting.
I can still feel that. Yeah. Yep. So so like we said, my practice is in Hartsville. It's called Kelmia Wellness, and I have an office location there. But yes, I do.
What's your website?
It's kelmiawellness.com.
And we will link that. We'll put kelmiawellness.com. We'll put that in the description so you guys don't forget, and you can set up your consultation, book something in with her. But you brought us a special thing to do today, and while we were talking about gut health, and I don't know a whole lot about this, I want to learn more, so I'll probably book with you. But you mentioned you were going to show us a little bit about making kefir.
Yes.
And that has to do with the gut health.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'll just give a little background about the kefir. But I did want to say one thing when we were talking about the consultations, that I do offer free 15-minute consultations if you just want to talk with me. Basically, I just say, tell me your story in a nutshell, a couple minutes, and then I can talk with you more. But if you've listened to the video, you probably know what I do. But yeah, if you did want to kind of give me what you have, and we can talk about how we would address that, then that is something that I also offer, and that can be set up through my website, the 15-minute call. So yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah. So back to kefir. So kefir is less common. Like, everybody knows about yogurt and how that can be beneficial for gut health, but when you go to the grocery store, most of the yogurt is kind of like dessert. It's highly sweetened, and it's just got maybe 4 strains of lactobacillus. So it's good for you, but kefir is like another level. And so when I have someone coming in with gut issues, kefir is often right there on the first visit of something that I'm going to recommend that they try. And it is so amazing. Like I was at a kind of a festival retreat type of thing, and a woman came up, and I had kefir at my table, so we were talking about it, and she was telling me how she had a really bad gut infection and had been on strong antibiotics and was getting just not better and, was just kind of at her wit's end with her gut health from after this huge infection that she had. And, I said, well, obviously don't know anything about you besides that, but, this is a food, try it. And
I like that. Try this.
This is not going to hurt you. And this is like at the grocery store. But I was actually at this retreat, I was actually showing people how to make the kefir, and I had the kefir grains for sale. So I said, here, buy this $10 set of grains and this will last you for life. And she was like, okay. Saw her a few months later and she said, that totally did the trick. So she never even needed to come for a visit. She just had to get her gut back in order again. So I love kefir because of its potential for healing, even really, I mean, it really helps even serious, inflammatory bowel disorders, things that are so pathological, but it helps people regain some quality of life. And the reason kefir is so much more powerful than yogurt, and both of these, are, traditional foods that come from Eastern Europe, but it has between 12 and 60 different strains of beneficial organisms. And so, whereas yogurt just has the beneficial bacteria, kefir also has beneficial yeast. Now, yeast kind of sounds yeast is beneficial. Because there's some yeast that candida that is pathological and creates symptoms, but beneficial yeast and kefir, they're much larger organisms than the lactobacillus, so they're going to be better placeholders in your gut. So say, and the other thing is antibiotics will not kill yeast probiotic. Okay. Because antibiotics are antibacteria. Mm-hmm. So if you take probiotics or yogurt in an event trying to prevent antibiotic-related diarrhea, say you're having to take antibiotics since you're trying to prevent side effects from that, because the antibiotics are clear-cutting your gut, and so now there's room for opportunistic pathogens. Again, they're not necessarily bad bacteria, but they're opportunistic, so they come in when you weed your garden. You take all the weeds out. Now, if you don't put a cover crop in, weeds will now grow like crazy. Mm-hmm. So the same thing's happening in your gut. When you take antibiotics, you're clear cutting, and now random weird stuff starts proliferating in your gut that creates symptoms, bloating, gas, all these different symptoms for people that are not desirable. And so if we use kefir, the yeast-based organisms are not killed by the antibiotics. So you can take concurrently with a course of antibiotics, and it helps protect you from developing the side effects in the gut from after that. So it's a really, it's different than yogurt. And it also ferments quite a bit longer. So yogurt has a 6-hour fermentation. Kefir is more 24 to 48 hours. So you have a lot more time for the probiotic count to multiply, and just be stronger in general.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So what I was going to show you guys today was how would you make your own kefir from kefir grains that are self-propagating. So they're going to multiply on you, and you will be able to share with your friends. And you said your husband likes kefir.
He does.
Does he make his own kefir or buy it?
No, he buys it from the store.
Yeah. So again, I often start people there. I'm like, if you don't want a pet, you can totally go to the grocery store, even here in rural South Carolina, at Walmart, at Food Lion, we can find, Lifeway kefir. Now, I noticed that sometimes they just carry the sugary fruit flavored ones that don't actually have real fruit, but they just have, beet color. I mean, they're okay. I mean, again, for some of my clients, that's where they're at, and they just need something super easy that they can chug down, So yeah, fine, there's sugar, all that, but I prefer to use real fruit, like blueberries, cherries, bananas, to make mine. If I want to have a really yummy, delicious smoothie, I'm going to use the natural fruit instead of just adding sugar. That's because then you get the benefits of the fruits, and so that's my preference. But again, every client is different in how much time they can invest. But kefir is incredibly easy to make. Yogurt, oh my gosh, I don't even have the patience to make yogurt. You have to heat it up to 180 and then wait for it to cool down to baby bottle temperature, and then add the culture, and then try to keep it that temperature for this extended period of time, because that's what we call a thermophilic culture. It's very finicky. And I just don't have the patience to make yogurt. I mean, you can get a yogurt maker, of course, which does most of that work for you, but kefir is dead simple because it's cultured at room temperature.
That really makes it
It's
easy.
so easy. Oh my gosh.
So
It's that easy. It cultures at room temperature. Now again, people have to get over the fact of, I have this stuff sitting on my counter, like milk on my counter at room temperature, and that really freaks people out a lot. And again, when I first started making kefir, I was like, what? So all of my training throughout my life was like, put the milk in the fridge. But you have to understand that when you add the culture to the milk, it's basically bomb-proof. I mean, that culture is so strong that it prevents any pathological organism from existing, as it's just like, it takes the space and it's like, we got this, so there's no danger to it. My family has been drinking kefir for 20 years at least, and it's actually the opposite of what you would think, because we have not had any kind of tummy bugs ever. Like, my son is 13, has never experienced a throwing up virus ever.
wow.
Because we drink kefir and he loves it, and there's no, it just, your body gets so much stronger. And like I said, it works on the immune system, but it's also just protecting and holding space in the gut and keeping those bad guys from setting up shop. And so it's very powerful. So yeah, it at first people might be like, which brings us to, again, the type of milk that we use to make kefir. Because, obviously I like to try to get foods that are organic, because, I like less chemicals in my food, less pesticides and insecticides and all that kind of thing. But all of the organic milk that's sold in this country is ultra pasteurized, which means that it's gone through very high heat. It just kills all the natural organisms in the milk, and so it becomes like a very dead food in a sense. And milk is actually a very processed food. And so again, a lot of people read online, oh, you can't have dairy if you want to be healthy. But again, I take that back to, well, it's been so processed that I think a lot of the problems are coming from that, all of that high heat that's going into it, and the homogenization to keep the cream from rising to the top, that alters the structure of the milk itself too, and that can cause problems. So luckily we have some farm fresh milk available. In Hartsville we have a couple shops that are selling real milk from the farm that is just miles beyond delicious. Like, it's so amazing. And the kefir really, it plays really well with the kefir. Now, you can make kefir with regular grocery store milk, but it will work. It will work, but it does like a more natural milk. And again, they'll a lot of the ones like River Bottom Dairy up in Jefferson, delicious, but they do pasteurize it. It's low temperature pasteurized, not ultra pasteurized. But again, in South Carolina, we do have grade A raw milk dairies, so we could actually get legal inspected raw milk, and it is really, really, really good stuff. And so a lot of people that had problems with commercial dairy, when they get the natural dairy that hasn't been homogenized and pasteurized to death, their body will accept it. And then you add the kefir to that, and it's even more like, it takes down the lactose, it takes down all of those things that sometimes people are reacting to in milk. When you make kefir, the fermentation process removes the lactose for the most part, most of it. And so you're not likely to have someone who's lactose intolerant may be just fine with the kefir. So just FYI on, a lot of people avoid dairy, but kefir, I think, is just such a beneficial food that it's worth a try, even if you typically don't do a lot of dairy, just on principle or whatever. But just, thinking about that in a wider scope of, this is a food that's really nourished humans for, thousands and thousands of years, and we have found ways to process it to make it even easier to digest and even more beneficial for our bodies.
I'm super excited. One, because I am one of those non-dairy drinkers. Not for any particular reason. I just don't like the flavor of it sometimes. So I'm excited to see this process, to try it, to work through it, and feel how it does, because I am also one of those people who wants to connect with you about gut health. And you said the first thing I'm going to tell you is kefir. So I'm super excited to give this a try, to learn how to do this. And so we're going to go and create this beautifully.
All right, so let's make some kefir. So I've got here some kefir that I had made previously, and this has actually been going about 48 hours. So this is kind of, like I said before, 24 to 48 hours is our normal culture time. And it depends, again, on the temperature in the room and a lot of different factors. But I just wanted to show you guys that this has actually started to separate into curds and whey. And I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but one of the most common questions I get from people when they start making kefir is, when it starts to separate like this, they're like, is it safe to drink? Is it okay? What happened to my kefir? And really the answer is it just over-cultured a little bit. So if you were to leave this for less time, it would be more homogeneous, and it wouldn't start to separate out into the liquid whey. But yeah, it's totally healthy and fine to drink. So what we're going to do is we are going to strain this out to capture the kefir grains, which is what we call the culture that is used to make the kefir. The beneficial organisms, the beneficial yeasts and bacteria, the probiotics that are what create the kefir. So oftentimes I'll use these canning funnels if I want to just transfer the kefir like right into another jar to then store in the refrigerator after I'm done culturing it. Keeping the kefir in the refrigerator does kind of hibernate and kind of stop the culturing process. So when we want to make kefir, we always leave it out at room temperature. So I'm just going to put it here in the blender because I'm going to show you how to make a delicious kefir smoothie today as part of our activities. So basically you take the cultured milk, and you're going to pour, I usually just pour about half of it into the strainer. And you'll see that it's kind of coagulated. It looks a bit yogurt-like. And then you can kind of use just a spatula to start pushing it through the holes of your strainer. So sometimes I tap it, and that gets a lot of the liquid through. So we are getting that through. And as we put it through the strainer, it's getting more and more creamy, and it's kind of, homogenizing it naturally into pure, delicious creaminess. Get this all pushed through. So what we're going to be looking for in the strainer, once we get the kefir pushed through, the part that's in the blender here is what we're going to drink. And the part that's going to be left in the strainer is our culture, which we are going to save and use to propagate our next batch and forever and ever. So that being said, where do you get these kefir grains? So obviously if you come to see me as a client, I will supply you with some fresh and healthy kefir grains if you need that. But there's also a company online called Cultures for Health that sells all sorts of starter cultures for different fermentation projects. Those grains would come to you dehydrated, so you do have to do a bit of work to get them out of their hibernation and into a healthy kefir producing state. So it is often easier for people to come and get the fresh grains, so they don't have to work as hard to get their kefir started. So right now, I don't know if I can show you guys, what I have left in the strainer are the actual grains. So I'm going to just lift this up. So it looks a bit like cauliflower. These grains, if you touch them, they're kind of gelatinous. So they have the spongy little texture. But this is about the state that I get them into. Now right now I have about 2 tablespoons of grains. So as you start to kefir, and over time, you're going to get more and more grains accumulating. So if I don't want my kefir to ferment quite as quickly, I will remove some of these grains. And I'm actually going to share them with Mary because her husband likes to drink kefir. So we will give him the kefir starter here today so he can maybe see if he likes making his own rather than purchasing the store-bought kefir. So I just gave about a tablespoon of grains to that are going to be for Mary, and then I put the rest in my jar here. And you don't actually need to get a clean jar every single time because the kefir that's left on there actually jump starts the next fermentation. Again, it's fine to use the same one a few times, or you can just get a fresh jar each time. So I will just use this jar for now because that's what I got. So this is the milk I was talking about from the River Bottom Dairy up in Jefferson. It hasn't been homogenized, that's why I'm shaking it, so all the cream is distributed evenly throughout my kefir. Another thing you can do when you have unhomogenized milk is you can actually put it in a container with a wider mouth and you can ladle out the cream, which is useful for making, if you want to make an Alfredo or something, you can grab the cream off and then have, use it that way. But whole milk kefir is amazing too. So I put about 3 cups of milk in here with my tablespoon full of grains, and I'm going to just cap that here with this lid. And that is all you need to do, folks. So now we've got just liquid milk in here with those grains, and we're just going to sit it room temperature on the counter for a full 24 hours. And the way to check if it's ready is if you tilt the jar like this, it won't be liquid anymore. It's going to be more like bloop, bloop, little coagulation happening, and that means that you've now got kefir. After 24 hours, it will be quite a mild kefir. And again, like I said, sometimes if it's very cold in the wintertime in your house, in your kitchen, you may need to kefir it a bit longer. But if you go much longer than 24 hours, and you don't see any action, that means your grains are probably not as active as they should be. And a lot of times I'll tell people just start over, maybe use smaller amounts of milk until you can build up to really active state. And I'm going to go ahead and give Mary, I'm going to put just a little bit of milk on her grains to feed them until she can get them home. And then all she will need to do is put these into a jar with more milk if her husband wants to try his hand at the kefir. All right. So Mary, you said you wanted to try this. Okay, so I'm going to have to warn you, because I a bit over fermented it, this one is going to be quite sharp. So the longer you ferment, the more acidic and strong tasting it will get. Now, it's still healthy and fine, and it's going to have a bit of that yeasty aroma, like I said, because that's part of the organism, so there's a bit of that, kind of that bakery smell a little bit in there. Okay, so we're going to just take a small taste of it plain and straight up so you get a sense of what this is like. And I'm going to also taste with you so I can tell you how. Here we are. Okay, so just take a little bit. All right.
Well, I guess we have to cheers to this. This first for me.
Okay. That's a good one.
It's actually not bad at all.
Yeah. So
it's really not. It's like so neutral. It's like a plain yogurt.
It's like a plain yogurt, but again, it's an acquired taste for a lot of people because people are not used to eating plain yogurt.
Oh no, like I told you, I don't eat yogurt, I don't drink milk, anything vinegar based like the kombuchas and all that stuff. I'm like, this, I can drink this.
Wow.
I mean, I wouldn't drink like a whole lot of it because it's still milk based, but the taste, like the flavor of it is very, very neutral, very mild. I could definitely, look, I'm taking another sip, guys.
So what we're going to do to make this super, super, super kid friendly is we're going to add blueberries. And again, I like to keep these, these keep wonderfully in the freezer for when we're out of season like this. They retain all their nutrients. So usually for each cup of kefir, I'm going to do about a half a cup of blueberries. So again, the jar contained about 3 cups, so I'm putting my cup and a half of blueberries in the blender. And then for each cup of kefir, usually about a half a banana. Normally, I keep these in the freezer as well, so I was out of bananas, so I had to pick some up on my way over. But normally, I like to use them a bit more ripe, a bit more spotty. So if you are ever finding yourself with a bunch of spotty bananas, what I do is I just peel them and place them into a Ziploc bag, leave them in the freezer, and now it's really easy just to take, part of a banana if you want, or, whatnot. But like I said, because we have about 3 cups of kefir, I'm going to go ahead and do usually 1.5 bananas, but because these are small, we're putting 2 in. It doesn't really matter exactly how, much fruit. It's kind of, you'll get your own recipe according to what your taste buds like. But in the overall, scheme, I'm trying to, for a really kid-friendly drink, we're trying to do about half fruit and half kefir. And the other amazing thing about making a kefir smoothie is the acidic nature, the sourness of the kefir marries really well with the sweet fruits. And so you get the sweet and sour, dynamite combination that it's so addictive. I love the sweet and sour combination that it creates. And so if you were to take the same banana and blueberries and stick it into, say, almond milk, you're going to have a meh smoothie, in my opinion. But when you do it in here, it's just going to be wow. So you have to try it to believe it. So I hate that you all can't be here in person to try what we're making. But I'm going to turn this on for just a second and blend it up. Now, do you have another little cup? Because I'm just going to dump this one and then let you try this with the fruit.
Okay. I love that I get to be the guinea pig.
The non-milk person.
That's very interesting. No, it's good. No, it's good. No, it's really good. The interesting part is the blueberry.
Uh-huh.
I don't know that I've ever had blueberry with banana before, so it gives it a very interesting flavor.
Some of my other fruits to use, frozen mango, frozen cherries are amazing. Really anything that you want to put in there.
I can imagine this like a popsicle. Like if I were to put a stick in this and freeze it, this would make an amazing popsicle.
Oh yeah, that's what I do.
It's really good.
Yeah. So you can take the smoothie, pour it into the popsicle mold, and it's a great treat for your kids. Really good. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you need to try it?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's really, really good. Thank you so much for showing us all of this. And I actually thought it was going to be really complicated. I was like, well, I'm going to have to get the recipe from her later. But it's not. He just needs to put more.
I'll give you instructions, an instructional sheet. But yeah.
He just needs to put it in a bigger jar, fill it with whole milk or unpasteurized milk. Essentially let it sit for 24 hours and then just strain it and do what you did.
Yep, that's it.
I think.
And so once I make the kefir, typically this is the one that's culturing right now. But say if I just wanted to keep some kefir in the fridge, I would leave it in the fridge just so it doesn't ferment anymore, just so it can maintain what we got. We can just keep it there. But yeah, anytime you're culturing it, it needs just to stay at room temperature, and it does its thing, just like magic. And it does create just more regular bowel movements and better, gut health. And
I'm gonna drink
integrity.
all of this because I need it. They're like, TMI. But thank you so much for coming on today, for telling us about what you do. It's so, so important in our community, and in this community that we're building, it's such an important thing that you're doing, and I'm super excited about all of it. And I love that you actually gave a tangible thing that we can take forward to help with our gut health, which is the center of everything.
Center of your health.
And it's actually so easy to do. I thought it'd be complicated. We were going to have to grow seeds. I don't know why I thought we were going to have to grow seeds. I just thought it was like a whole process.
Yeah. So if your husband takes this on, you'll have your listeners that live around you may have a source of kefir right here in Florence. So if you become a kefir center, but we'll see where that takes you. But
you're the kefir center.
I'm the kefir
I'll
center.
settle to you, kefir center. But thank you so much for coming on today. It's been great. I super appreciate it. And all of you guys, go to her website, figure out how you and your health can fit in with what she has to offer. She does have those free 15-minute consultations. So that's a great thing to take advantage of. And then a 90-minute sit down while she gets to connect to you heart to heart, look at you holistically, and just see how you can benefit best and how your health can really take on a huge skyrocket from everything that she has to talk about, because it's limitless. Literally infinity knowledge comes from this willow tree of a woman. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Mary, and it's been a pleasure being here with you, and just, you know, your heart connection is so strong, and, you know, it's just always a pleasure to work with you, and thank you for inviting me.
No one else could have done it. Only you could have done it.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye.